I just want to say hi and thank you if you are watching. This is my very first YouTube video, so please excuse the video quality. I'm actually using my phone at the moment. I have ordered a webcam, but I don't think it's going to arrive for a few days yet, and I need to start making progress on this model, so I just thought I'd give this split cam software a try and see how it goes, see what happens. But basically I started painting models about a few months ago really. Normally I paint canvases for people. I don't know if you can see that in the background. It's Ulysses and Mandalorian. But I started to get into resin FDM printing, and I had 5 printers I think, and I loved it, but printing models of high quality, they're not really made for that. So basically I switched over to SLA printing, and now I've got a couple of photon mono X's, and this is basically what I do now. I just paint models. So yeah, anyway, this was Darth Talon that I posted on Reddit, and I got hit with like a ton of questions. It was like 1,500 questions. I also posted it on another thread as well, so in total I think it was nearly 3,000. Normally I wouldn't make a video or anything like that. It's not something I'd normally do, but after answering all the questions and a few people asking if I would make a video or start a channel or something, so yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. Decided to start making a channel, basically just showing what I've learned and how it applies to models, because there is a lot of videos on YouTube that show you the tricks and stuff, but it's like a book with pages missing. They tell you so much, but it doesn't necessarily apply to what you want to do. So yeah, but this was the Darth Talon. I'll just move this camera that I've just done. It's got a 1 megawatt 5mm laser built into the handle. It's also got another nano LED at the back to light up the kyber crystal, and it's got about 9 LEDs in the base, I believe, lighting up all these crystals. In the dark it shows up really well. It's amazing, but it's really sunny outside today, and I've got white blinds, so it's not the best situation. But yeah, I'm just going to move this out of the way. All of these models actually run off a 12-volt power supply. I just link that up to a battery to make it more mobile while I'm doing photos and stuff. Basically all I'm going to do in this first video is just basically go through a few things that you'll need as a beginner if you're going to get into this stuff, because I learnt the hard way, and there's nothing worse than getting so far into a project and then having to wait 4 or 5 days while you order something else. One of the first things you're going to need is one of these, which are just crocodile clips on the end of skewers. You can buy them ready-made, but I don't bother because of the cost. I just buy a whole bunch of crocodile clips from Amazon and some barbecue skewers, and just use a bit of super glue. Yeah, and they do the job, and it's just to hold your parts while you're painting them, really, so you don't have to get any fingerprints on there while you're doing it. People that have been modelling for a while or painting miniatures will use these and know what these are, but for those that are completely new and just want to get into this, you are going to need, sorry my cat's meowing, you are going to need one of these and lots of these. You're probably going to need about 20. and these come with your Mono X. Most people just chuck it away, but I save it for this purpose. I mean, they don't last forever, but it lasts long enough. So yeah, basically I'm just going through all the basics of, again, what you're going to need. One of the basic things that you need is your files and stuff like that. Now, everyone buys your diamond files sets, which are great, they work great. The only problem is you can't get into certain corners, and I found these on Amazon and they're absolutely fantastic. You can see those. They're almost like dental tools, and they're really good quality diamond coated, so you can just get into all kinds of weird shapes with these. So you can shape things again, which when you're repairing prints or doing the joints on arms and legs and stuff, it definitely helps. I mean, I use these more than these now, and I also use these as well, which I think that these actually come from America, so if you're in America you can get them really easy. And it just basically, you just push the sanding strip round, and it's got really sharp corners on it and rounded edges on it, so you can sand away with this. So, and once you've clogged it up, you just sort of push it round to the next bit. So yeah, that's your files out of the way. I got all of those from Amazon. I think I've already said that. Another thing that you're going to need, it's before you even really start with files or anything, and that is filters. You're going to need filters, and you're going to need a funnel, because every time you do a print you are going to have to clean out your vat, and you don't want to be putting resin back in your bottle that's been used. So I normally just put my funnel in there, stand one of these in, and basically clean out, pour it all out. Also, your Pheps. I use this. Now, people debate this online, but I bought this one, which is a dry PTFE spray. My Pheps was originally, when I started printing, you were probably looking at about, I don't know, between 75 hours and 100 hours if you was lucky, sort of thing. And then the Pheps started to feel scratched, and you could feel the roughness to it. Applying this before every print and just basically wiping it around the Pheps and around the edge of the vat, I'm getting up to 200 hours so far, maybe more. And it's still in use, so it definitely makes a difference for me. So definitely recommend buying one of these, especially when it's, I think it's about £9 or something like that from Amazon. While we were talking about the Pheps, you tend to see two brands online, this one and this one. These are absolute garbage. The wafer thin, they don't last, they scratch easy. These ones, they're really, really tough, they're much, much thicker. Each one is individually coated with a protective film, and you only get one in a packet, whereas these, it's basically just 5 pieces of film shoved in there, and yeah. Yeah, so these are 1mm and these are 2mm, 0.2, sorry. But yeah, I definitely go for the blue ones. I really wouldn't waste my time with the black ones. And another thing that you're going to want to get for the Mono X is your screen protectors. I got these from AliExpress. I live in the UK, and I think it took about 10 days to get here. I think there's 4 still in there, so you got 6. And I wasn't going to bother with these, and then I saw a few posts on Reddit with people that had the resin leak on the screen. There's a polarizing film on the top of the screen. Once that's got resin on it, you're not getting it off. I mean, you can try, but your screen's never going to be the same again. A lot of people end up having to recoat you can get a polarizing film on there, but it's just making life difficult for the sake of, I think there was about $11 for 6. Free postage as well, so it's basically peanuts. Sorry, my cat's just jumped up on the sofa. Yeah, so it's basically no money at all, really, and you get peace of mind. And I'd never heard of a screen protector for the printer originally, but after buying it, I think I had one on there for a couple of weeks and then had a leak. And at first I panicked because I forgot about the protector, and I was trying to get it off, and you're not getting it off. And then I realised, yeah, I'll just pull this off and put the next one on. Also, if you get air bubbles on there, I've got one's on perfect on one printer, and on the other printer it's not so perfect. But I've not had any problems printing with any type of like bubbles or anything. The other thing you're going to need is a laser pen. This is a UV laser pen. I think it's 405 nanometer. You're going to use this to, when you join parts together, you would fill it with Miller putty and then go over it with resin. Depending on the size of the gap, if it's a really deep gap, then obviously it has to be filled with a Miller putty. But if it's a thin gap, then you would just basically take a paintbrush, dip it in some resin, basically just paint it over the gap, and then just set it and just leave it on there for a few seconds, and you'll be fine. And it just gives a better finish, and when you sand it, it's perfectly smooth. Why do I use the Miller putty over normal fillers? I've got every single filler you can buy, from Humbro to Tamiya, Vallejo, obviously, can't pronounce that name. They're all crap. When you're sanding, they don't just blend like nicely. And what I always find is once it gets down to like the very base. If I was to sand this off and it was not Miller putty, once you get to see it, basically once it gets really smooth, you just start getting chunks coming out. And I've not found a single one that works, only Miller putty. And it doesn't just work well, it works amazing. I mean, the Batman model, you can't really see it from here, but the Batman model, if anyone looks on Reddit, it's a perfect front, but there was actually a gap about that big. And I just used the files that I've just shown you to shape it again and sand it. So, yeah, you're going to need a lot of this. I've just ordered another 2 packets today. Whenever you've finished a print, before you start painting it, you have to prime it. Don't buy this stuff. It's awful. Really, really, really awful. It's got like it dries like a chewing gum effect. I mean, it looks fine, but if you nick a part, or you need to smooth a part off again and sand it, this stuff's gonna peel away. Like once you broke the surface of it, it just keeps coming off. It's like chewing gum. You can just peel it off and it'll peel off the whole model. It's garbage basically. The only primers I use now are sometimes Mr. Hobby, but I've stopped buying that. It's more harder to find in the UK, and the price for the small bottles it's not really worth it. These aren't cheap either, they're about £16 each, but these are what I use, and they're zero paints, or by zero paints. It says filler primer. It is filler primer. If you use to keep sanding it, painting it, spraying it on, sanding, spraying, sand, yeah, it's going to fill a small gap, but you're not going to lose any detail. So basically it's just primer, and it's an enamel based primer. So I've painted models before that I've scrubbed with basically cellulose thinner to get the paint off, and this stuff stayed on. You're sanding this off, you're not getting it off, so it works really, really good. Obviously, if you're going to be painting something like Darth Talon or red or anything that's got a light colour to it, you're going to want to paint it white, and then you're going to want to use grey for the shadows. You won't use this, you just use grey paint, but grey for the tone areas, or black. I use black for Darth Talon, and I think I may have used grey. No, I didn't. I just used black. So there you go. Black. It's not so bad with black, but black shadows on a white primer. The paint's you're going to need a lot of coats basically. Whereas if I'd have done it with grey, I'd have probably not needed so much. But it might not have shown up as good. So these are the normal paints that I would use if I was airbrushing. They're all the same company, Vallejo, forget it. Anyway, they make loads of different ranges, but a lot of them are the same colours. They're just, if you buy the game colour, then instead of being scarlet red, they call it bloody red, But, well, yeah. So they're what I use. They are good quality paints, fantastic for the airbrushing, but they're pretty weak. They're not very strong. Even after being coated with a thin lacquer coat, enamel coat, I rested it down on the table on top of a sheet of paper, and it left 2 marks where it had been on the paper, and this had after it had been dry for a day or so. So it scratches off, pretty easy. Createx Wicked range, they're really good. That isn't going to come off as easy. They're a much stronger finish because they use it for model cars and stuff. But they don't have a large range of colours. It's like primers, and then you're mixing your own. So I don't use that much of them unless I'm mixing them with something else. I'm not sure if I've mentioned already, whenever I paint anything, so like with the Darth Talon, I painted her red, and then I sprayed her with this. It's Zero Paints clear coat lacquer, and it's a gloss lacquer, but if you don't heap it on, it won't be glossy. Like, I'll just show you some close-ups of her, and she's not glossy. But what this does is, if I went wrong with the tattoos, which I did a few times, I went over the lines. Initially I forgot to lacquer it, and whenever I tried to wipe it off with a bit of a damp cloth, it took off the paint. It took off my base coat of red. So then I had to go back to my airbrush, spray that, touch that up. When you've lacquered it, that doesn't happen. So if you go over the lines, you can just wipe it off with a wipe or something, and just carry on working. Yeah. So it definitely saves a lot of time. It also saves a lot of masking off, and because you don't have to worry about the edges so much, or going over an edge, because you can just wipe it off. So, like, if I'm going to paint Grogu here, I will do the base coat on this of, say, a light brown, and then I will put a wash on and wipe it off, so it'll just stick in all these gaps. Once I've done that, I would then lacquer it with a clear coat, and then I would add on the other colours, like the more deeper tones, and shadows. That way if I go wrong on anything I can just wipe it off. So it's handy stuff. Anything that's you're going to want to make shiny, like the crystals and the lightsabers and stuff, you're going to have to use a clear varnish, basically polyurethane, and any will do. I mean, I just bought this one, it's from the local shop. It's £5 for a massive can as well. Enough to do plenty of models anyway. And you need to get this inside and outside the part. So it's no good just coating the outside of the part. Yeah, it's going to look shinier, but you need to get it inside as well. So what I do is I mix a little bit of that with some cellulose thinner, and makes it much more watery. And you can use, you can get syringes from eBay that are for like filling printer cartridges and stuff. They're quite thick and strong. I'd use that to inject it into the crystals and then suck it back out again, and that way the coat would be varnish on the inside and the outside, and that gives it that totally transparent effect. Another thing you're going to need is a hell of a lot of milliputter. I mean, I've just ordered another 2 packets of this, so if you plan to get into it seriously and really start building some big models, you're going to need some of this. I almost forgot. Most of the normal painting that I've done, like the black work, the gold armor, all of Mumra and all of Batman, that's all army paints. One thing I will say about these, they are amazing paints. They are really strong, they've got a lot of pigment in there. You are going to have to get some ball bearings for them. Don't buy the Army Painter brand. They're slightly bigger than other brands, but the price for what you're getting, it's ridiculous. I think there's a brand called AK, and you can get it's like a tub almost the size of this, and it's just full. And I just put 3 in each bottle, and that's enough to get the pigment going, because these are really heavily pigmented colours. They're also really, really strong bonding. If you're going to use it for a wash, I recommend using water with them, because if you use an acrylic thinning medium, it's going to retain its strength, its grip, and when you're doing washes and you want to do all the effects, they don't come off that easy. A couple of times I've ended up jumping up fast, going over to the kitchen sink, grabbing a proper abrasive type cloth, and really having to sort of scrub away the mistake or the wrong colour or whatever. So yeah. Another thing, depending on what models you're doing, is the effects paints. These are really, really, really good, and they're well worth the money. I've got a couple more on the way. They're all made by the same brand. So you get thick mud, rust texture, splashed mud, and rust wash. I use tea bags. They're really, really good, and you don't break them, by the way. You just get a little pot, and just pour some hot water in, put the tea bag in, leave it for 10 minutes. Anything that you sort of put that liquid, squeeze the tea bag on, will, if it's got corners on it, it will have sediment that looks like dust and dirt that's just built up in there. And it also works absolutely brilliantly for aging anything that's you want to make it look old or dirted. They're great, and you can just build that up. It does get a bit sticky sometimes, but once you've lacquered it, it's not a problem anymore. So I definitely recommend getting it. I mean, it's not just recommended, they're kind of a necessity. The project that I'm working on now, which is a 1/6 scale Mandalorian on a speeder with grogu. you won't be able to pull it off convincingly because the speeder's like really, really old and rusted, so you need all those effects basically. I'll just bring this in quick just to show a few of the basically I noticed the last few days on Reddit a lot of people was asking for help with how to stop the warping of the edge. You can't. It's just the way it is. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on it. There's a warp basically. It's like it's going off down, and that's because when you start printing, you're going to have this on an angle anyway. But when it starts, when this top layer goes on, I mean, it starts off as thin as a human hair, and it's been pulled off a plastic base. You're not going to do that without it warping, and that's basically what causes this warping. It's also curing it, which is shrinking it at the start as well because it's just so thin. You're always going to have one of the sides that are like this. You're going to have a straight edge. I could have had two straight edges, I guess, if I'd have positioned it this way on the build plate. If I'd have done that, your supports are going to go along here, and that means it's going to ruin it, and you're not going to be able to clean that up, not without spending a serious amount of time, and even then it's still not going to look great. So obviously it's got to go on the end that's not going to be seen. Unfortunately, that's going to be the end that joins to another section. So, and this is your warp, which you can't avoid, unfortunately. It's just one of those things. You know, it looks bad, but it really isn't. Like I say, I filled the whole front of the Batman. It had the same gap, and you can't tell. Once you've got your files on there and sorted it out. Also, you can add damage. So, like I did with the Dark Tail on base, which I will do with this one, is I'll just basically take a bread knife to it and stuff, and really sort of score it, or an hacksaw, and just basically put some nice scars in there, make it look aged. But yeah, so you're going to need plenty of miller putting. You're also going to find that a lot of the time these ends don't completely fit together, so you're going to have to sand these off. And this was printed because it's so big, and it still took, like saying, about 400 mil resin nearly, and that's at 1.7 thickness. And that's basically not going to be a hollow. You could just chop that off with a hacksaw to get it to fit together, but it's not important. But it is annoying if you're gonna have to, you want to get on with your model, and now you've got to spend another God knows how long sanding down all the fittings, because normally if they don't fit together like that, it's a sign that a lot of them are not going to work. But I had noticed that these ones actually didn't go together that bad. So I'm not sure what it is. It's just this end that are the problem. Damaged prints. This has got one gash at the top, as you can see, and two more here. This was rammed full of supports. I mean, rammed. But I missed two spots, and they wouldn't have been red spots because I would have seen those. So these would be the light pink ones. And this, there's not much you can do about it, because the supports have got to start at the top, and getting them to go, it's just, you just have to hope. I mean, if I'd have filled it, if I'd have hollowed it at maybe 2 2mm, it probably wouldn't have happened, but yeah, there's nothing I could do about that. So I'll just show this print, another print that's gone wrong. This started to go funny towards the end. I'm not sure. I've just re-leveled the bed, so maybe it'll go away. I'm not sure. I've also cleaned the Z-axis, but basically it started to get lines. It started off really shallow, but a few of them got deep, and that caused the model to rip, and it severed all the supports inside. How it's managed to completely finish this without any support, I ain't got a clue. Normally that would have just failed completely, but it didn't. So, and the shiny is where I've painted resin on there to fill any lines. I've also had to put Miller putty inside and basically force it through the gaps. And yeah, it feels okay. Once this is sanded, like I say, you probably never notice it. I mean, obviously if you notice it, you might see something. Also, this is going to have a lot of dirt, dust, rust and grime, the mud effect clogged up in there, so it's not going to be a problem. And at the price of the resin, I mean, 400mm resin, it's like £30, like £15 a section nearly. So I'm not printing it again. I'm going to have to just put up with it. So, yeah, they're basically all the essential things that you're going to need to build these models, paint these models, and make them look nice. Also, I will say, if you're going to add electrics like I did, they're not designed for that purpose. So when I was in Chitterbox, I would alter it. So I'd make sure that the whole placements are going to be correct to line up with the whole model, basically. So because the wire is going to have to come through the base, straight up through the speeder. It's going to have to come up through here, up through the bike seat, and then it's going to go up through the Mandalorian and down his arm. And that's just one blue LED, because he's only got one. I think there's a red one on his other side, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that because it's just so tiny. I suppose I could put a blinker in LED, and it's not an LED. It's it's not like on Predator where it's got like the symbols where they're sort of changing. It's sort of doing that sort of thing. But I might put a blinking LED in his right side as well. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's my first video on YouTube. Basically, just showing you guys what you're gonna need. On the next video, hopefully I'll have the new webcam, and I will also have the proper software, so I won't be using a trial software. So I have stereo sound, not mono sound, and yeah. So I hope people found some of that useful, and yeah, I'm looking forward to making the next video. And yeah, I'm also starting Ahsoka Tano as well, so I'll be doing that on video as well with dual white lightsabers. So, which is also causing a problem, by the way. So you can't get white lasers, and white plastic's not transparent enough to light up the way I want, so I'm having to formulate my own sort of thing. I bought some epoxy, SLA resin dyes, so I'm going to take some clear transparent resin and basically make it a milky white. Hopefully that'll be enough to diffuse the white light, but not make them just look like two plastic tubes with an LEDs. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, goodbye.